What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 2022 NBA free agency. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials in the description as well, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the structure of this video is essentially, let's talk out the situations as it relates to a handful of 2022 free agents. We're going to begin with the not super big name guys, and then we're going to talk about 5 or 6 like huge name players that are 2022 NBA free agents. I know it's early for this kind of stuff, but for me personally, it's never too early to talk about free agency, right? So in the not big names category, we have players like Dennis Schroeder, who of course missed out on, reportedly, not according to him, but reportedly missed out on a significant payday this past offseason, settled for the mid-level exception with Boston. And I'm going to choose to take a long-term outlook here on Dennis Schroeder's season, where he's probably going to have a half-decent season. He's probably going to put up good numbers. He's going to convince a team, maybe not to give him like a 5-year huge deal, but he should be able to get a 2-3-year deal and really help a team out. Think about like what Evan Fournier got for New York. He got like 4 years, 84. He wasn't overwhelmingly impressive the season prior. And his skill set fits a little bit better with certain teams because he can shoot the ball well, and Schroeder's never really proven to be a really good off-ball shooter. But you can kind of see a path where Dennis Schroeder gets a relatively significant contract. Next up, really interesting one, Colin Sexton, who's a restricted free agent. Cleveland's going to try and move him. And I'm kind of all in on the Darius Garland thing. Like there's a lot of buzz about Evan Mobley, how good he's been, Jared Allen, that stuff, 100%. But like when it's just Darius Garland, Ricky Rubio, like I kind of like that group. Obviously, Rubio's not going to be a long-term piece here, but when you have someone like Colin Sexton that is going to want $25+ million a year, and your basketball team looks better when he's not on the floor, it's a really difficult situation to be in. Ideally, he would just be like a 6-man scorer type guy, but he wants to be a starter. He wants to get paid a ton of money, and I just like their other guards better. So he could very, very easily end up on another team, either via trade this offseason or this, before the trade deadline, and then that team needs to pay him, or he could end up on another team simply because Cleveland doesn't see the value in re-signing him. I'm very intrigued by his free agency, because if there's another team out there that wants to offer him $20-25 a year, Cleveland might just let him walk. He might not match it. And I can't remember the last time we had a restricted free agent like that where the other team just straight up didn't match it. I guess Bogey would be the last one for Sacramento, but that's definitely a situation to keep an eye on. We'll go through these last couple quickly. Victor Oladipo has been hurt. If he comes back, looks good. 1, that could really help this Miami team. But 2, that could kind of revive his career a little bit. Hopefully get him a new free agency deal, although we've kind of, I feel like, been talking about that for a couple of years. Lou Dort could get a ton of money as a restricted free agent, as well as someone that can guard, has improved as a shooter, is like a really, really good defender, and someone that could definitely find some value on the open market. Andre Drummond, kind of in the Dennis Schroeder mold, where it's like, hey, if this guy puts up good numbers, especially in replacement of Joel Embiid, maybe he gets another, multi-year contract. Goran Dragic, same thing. As long as he's healthy, he's going to have pretty good production. He's going to get some interest on the open market. Marvin Bagley is just perpetually an incredibly interesting case. Assuming Sacramento doesn't move him, he is a restricted free agent and someone that could find a new home. I'm really hoping that he just gets moved and then that new team re-signs him, but I don't know. And then Montrezl Harrell, who we've done this with a couple of times now, where, as of right now, it looks like Washington's going to be a playoff team. And right now, it looks really good for Montrez, and he's putting up really good stats in the regular season. But if he looks bad again in the postseason, like he has in the past, that might limit his value back down to, the mid-level exception deals he's kind of been signing the last couple of years. Really, really interesting free agent to take a look at. As we now move on to the next group, the marquee names here, we're going to stick with the Washington Wizards, because Bradley Beal has a player option for this offseason. And this is a story that we've been paying attention to for 2.5 years. I was really confident he was going to get moved this offseason and before the deadline. Obviously, it doesn't appear as though that's going to happen now, because Washington has been really, really good to begin this season. And that's even without Beal either playing or not playing particularly well. So the Washington situation is fascinating, and one that increasingly it looks like Beal is going to stick around for. Now, it's always possible that Washington could absolutely crater, and he, going from this team's good to us being really bad again could be kind of the last straw for him. Maybe we'll ask out, get traded for the deadline, re-sign, whatever, or potentially look to go somewhere else in free agency. A lot of things can change between now and when free agency starts, but right now, it looks like Bradley Beal will probably opt out, re-sign a new big deal with Washington, which would be huge, not only for them, but in terms of limiting kind of the effectiveness of what this 2022 free agency class could look like. Next up, we've got a pair of guys in Brooklyn. Kevin Durant signed his extension. Kyrie Irving and James Harden do not yet have an extension signed with Brooklyn. The Kyrie thing is, of course, weird. Don't know when he's going to play. Don't know if he's going to play. He could retire at any moment, and I wouldn't be surprised. My gut says that the end of the year, whatever happens here with Brooklyn, all three of these guys are going to stay because they all seem, from a basketball standpoint, happy. It doesn't really seem like there's any frustration in terms of this guy's taking too much of the ball or things like that. And I just can't imagine a scenario, especially if they don't win the title, where these guys would find a better place to potentially win a title when they're all three playing together. But it's weird. It's definitely odd that it's up in the air. I mean, Harden has basically come out and said, hey, I just want to focus on trying to win a title. I don't really want to deal with the extension stuff. He hasn't played particularly well, at least not up to his standards to begin the season. Irving hasn't even been on the floor. I mean, realistically, both those guys are getting maxes, like there's no way nobody's going to, offer these guys a max contract. But it's just an odd situation. It's a weird little wrinkle that Durant has already committed to re-sign. He's coming back. They know that he's going to be there. And so you would hope that would mean that they would also return, but those are two guys to keep an eye on. Next up, another guy that has a player option, Zach Lavine. Again, it's so weird, right? Because coming into the year, you're looking at Washington, you're looking at Chicago, each made plenty of moves this offseason, trying to shift some things around. They've got big free agents impending. There's a lot on the line in terms of how they perform this season. Chicago has been kind of hesitant to give Zach Lavine a max, and both their teams are playing awesome, and it's turned around their free agency situations as a whole. Now, again, it's early, and it's always possible that these teams do fall apart at a certain point, which obviously would have a huge negative impact on their free agency chances. But Lavine is a guy that has a player option this offseason. He's going to have no shortage of suitors, and the fact that he can just be unrestricted and go out and about and go wherever he wants to is really, really interesting. Now, it seems pointed in the direction of Chicago has a good season. They re-signed him. Everything's fine. But having that hanging over you can certainly be a negative thing. Next up, I did put Russell Westbrook in this category. I almost put him in the first category, but he's just such a big name that he has to be here, right? I know it would sound crazy for Russell Westbrook to decline a $44 million player option, but I go back to nobody thought Chris Paul would decline his player option. He ended up getting more money on a long-term deal. And obviously, Russell Westbrook is not playing right now the way that Chris Paul did last year before signing his extension. But statistically, at least, that possibility always exists where he plays well, opts out, gets a couple years on a long-term deal. Like, what else is LA going to do, right? I mean, if he plays well and he opts out, are they just going to let him walk? Like, he's the only guy that they can really do anything with here long-term. So the other possibility, though, is like, imagine, because this is Russ's fourth team in 4 years. Imagine things don't go well, and by the end of the year, like, he's unhappy, and him and LeBron, it just doesn't work out. I mean, he could just opt out and leave if he wanted to. Like, this could be a one and done year in LA for Russ. I don't know. I have no idea where he would go from there, but again, the possibility exists. Then last up is potentially the most interesting free agent in the entirety of the 2022 class, and it's Deandre Ayton. We talked about this before the season started, where extension talks just kind of fizzled. He wants a full max. Phoenix doesn't want to give him a full max. They're trying to go a little bit under that. And they never came to an agreement. So he is technically a 2022 free agent. Now, granted, he is restricted, and any team that offers him a contract does so with the expectation that Phoenix can match that contract. But it's a weird situation for a team that looks like a title contender once again to begin this season. And he's a young guy. He's super critical to the roster. It seems weird how hesitant they would be to just give him the max, because it's not like he's going to sign for $20 million a year. It's either going to be, the full max or a little bit less than that. And so it seems a little bit just like negligible, the difference between those two numbers. But ultimately, that small difference can make a huge impact on Ayton's relationship with the franchise in the long term. His willingness to stay there, especially, like once Chris Paul moves on, maybe some of this stuff kind of carries over and he wants to leave eventually. But specifically as it relates to 2022, I would expect him to get paid, whether that be another team with an offer sheet and then it getting matched or just an extension. I'd be really, really surprised if he did end up somewhere else, but maybe he, signs the 1 year qualifying offer and then tries to go somewhere else the following year, which nobody's done yet, but somebody's going to do eventually. But still, it's a very, very interesting situation there in Phoenix as relates to DeAndre Ayton. But as you can see, this list, we always do this, right, when it's really early for free agency. The list looks impressive now, but some of these guys are going to opt into their player options or get an extension or re-sign with their team. So overall, it might not actually be an incredibly impactful 2022 free agency class, but I think specific to the situations of each of these guys, especially kind of the second group here, there's just a lot of interest in their teams and how they perform, because a lot of them have been playing a lot better to begin the season than a lot of people would have expected them to, which just kind of changed the dynamic of each of these free agent situations. But yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you've been seeing my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. And yeah, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.